Good afternoon. Today I'm going to be reviewing the H.G.P Night Diver 200M Automatic. This watch is available from hgpwatches.com for €469. H.G.P stands for Homme Grenouille Paris. They have a rich brand heritage. They were founded in 1970 in France. In the 1970s and 1980s they produced dive pieces, then the brand died out. In 2023 the brand came back to life. I've previously reviewed the H.G.P Diver 200M Quartz version. This piece, the Night Diver 200M Automatic, is a novelty or new release. So firstly, let's look at the box that the watch comes in, and then I'll talk you through the specifications of the piece. So the watch comes in a travel case, which is housed inside this cardboard box. So one removes the travel case. This is the travel case itself. Now, H.G.P deserve credit here because they could have used the cost-cutting measure of using vinyl or PU leather, but this travel case is made from genuine leather and also canvas fabric, which has a denim tone to it. So the genuine leather has a nice tan or cognac tone to it. The strap is embossed with the H.G.P logo, flawless stitching around the perimeter of the exterior and also the interior, as you can see. Nice heavy canvas fabric to it, very aesthetically pleasing, and the flap is well secured by the correctly proportioned genuine leather strap, as you can see. So this makes a credible alternative to the default option of a plastic or cardboard watch box, which is often used by low tier brands at this price point of €469. It is aesthetically pleasing and the quality of the genuine leather and canvas fabric is good. With regards to the items that come with the watch, it also comes with this cardboard envelope, and I'll show you what it contains. So on the head of the piece comes with a black tropic style strap. As an alternative to the black tropic style strap, they also include this khaki version of it. So it follows the classic pattern of 1970s tropic straps, has the perforations and also textured finish of a tropic strap, but also has a rally formation with the large holes, as you can see. Textured finish to the underside as per 1960s or 1970s vintage tropic straps. The perforations allow for air circulation and for sweat and perspiration to wick away from the wrist. Alternatively, if you use the piece as a dive piece in seawater, which is its intended purpose, it allows for the water to wick away from the wrist. So the perforations do serve a purpose, but they're also very aesthetically pleasing. I like the textured finish to the top side and the underside. Now the thing to note is this is not made from silicone rubber. It's made from a higher quality rubber. It's made from NBR rubber. NBR stands for nitrile butadiene rubber, and nitrile butadiene rubber is often used in the automotive and aeronautical industries because it is chemical, oil and UV resistant. So I'll show you the buckle and tang side. We have two keepers. Now I want to show you something else they include. They include single keepers, which are larger because they appreciate some collectors prefer larger single keepers to more slim double keepers, so it's good to get that included. We have a black one and also a khaki one to match the straps, but they fit the two sliding keepers, the two singles, as an alternative to the single larger keeper. So textured finish to the top side and underside, classic 1960s or 1970s vintage tropic style. I like the textured finish to it. Feels very soft and supple and flexible despite being thick. It is thicker at the spring bar end and then gradually tapers down in thickness to the buckle and tang end, but due to the perforations and it being thinner both in width and thickness at the buckle and tang end, it does feel soft and supple. It does feel stiffer than a silicone rubber strap, but the benefit of this being made from NBR, nitrile butadiene rubber, is that it is more durable and robust, and of course it's more chemical, oil and UV resistant than silicone rubber, which has a tendency to split and crack, especially around the spring bar end due to regular use. So to put it into perspective, NBR rubber is the same quality or the same grade as natural rubber, or alternatively FKM fluoro rubber. It's a higher grade of rubber than silicone rubber. Now with the watch you also get this NSA branded spring bar tool. NSA make the bracelets such as the beads of rice bracelets, which I reviewed on the quartz version of this H.G.P diver. So it has two caps. It's made from aluminium and the body is anodized black. Knurled shanks to the caps, as you can see they unscrew very well. And inside we have a tool steel tip, push pin at one end and a two-prong fork at the other end. So this is very well made. It's good quality, and I like the quality of the black anodized finish to the aluminium body of it and the two hardened tool steel tips. Good quality spring bar tool, so nice to get that included. They also include these two cardboard envelopes, and they contain two pairs of stainless steel spring bars. Again, they're branded by NSA, who make the bracelets and also the straps for H.G.P. And good to get two spare stainless steel spring bars included with the two straps. You also get this keyring tag, which is made from fabric, and it says Homme Grenouille Paris, which is what H.G.P stands for. On the reverse, we also have G. Monin France and H.G.P, because Georges Monin designed the iconic 844 Monin case used in this piece, and it really is excellent to see a genuine French-made Monin case, not a copy of it, used in this piece. You also get this sticker, which is Les Homme Grenouille Paris, with the brand emblem, as you can see. And lastly, you also get this card. This is the certificate of authenticity and also warranty card. We have the brand emblem and H.G.P. On the reverse, it gives the website, hgpwatches.com. There's also a specific website, hgp.watch, which is for downloading the owner's instruction manual. This gives clear, concise diagrams and instructions in English and details the operation of the movement, the Seiko NH35 automatic. There's also space for the serial number, date of purchase and the retailer, which is H.G.P. Now I want to give due credit to H.G.P here, because often low tier pieces at this price point of €469, they only cover the watches but with a 12-month warranty. This is covered by 2 years of warranty, which is very good. So good presentation, good accessories, and also good to get a 2-year warranty. So with regards to the specifications of the piece, we have a 42mm case diameter, we have a lug-to-lug measurement of 47mm, a thickness of 13.4mm, and a lug width of 20mm. The vintage Tropic style strap tapers from 20mm at the lugs down to 16mm at the buckle and tang. Solid 316L grade stainless steel buckle and tang, which is brush satin finished and also mirror polished on the flanks. Nice heavy gauge to it, no sharp edges, no burrs, but however the negative is it's sterile. I would like to see H.G.P upgrade this and sign it or emboss it with H.G.P, the brand logo, because a sterile sterile buckle is a cost-cutting measure, and I think at this price point, €469, it is unacceptable. It should have a signed buckle. With regards to the rest of the specification, we have a flat sapphire crystal with clear AR coating on the underside, and the clear anti-reflective coating does an outstanding job of reducing the glare and the highly reflective nature of the flat sapphire crystal. They've made the correct decision here by using a flat sapphire crystal versus a boxed top hat crystal or alternatively double dome sapphire crystal, because they would have added additional thickness. They would have made it 2mm thicker. The thing to note is this automatic version of the H.G.P Diver 200 is thicker than the quartz version I previously reviewed. It's 13.4. So if you want a lower profile, thinner piece, I recommend the quartz version I previously reviewed. This piece with the fully loomed dial, the Night Diver version, is only available in automatic and it's 13.4, so it is thicker. The dial is fully loomed with C3 Superluminova, perfect colour tone match to the black handset, which is also fully loomed with C3 Superluminova. Also an interesting detail is the Arabic numerals on the dial aren't printed with white paint on the black date wheel. Just bear with me, I'll move the minute hand out of the way so you can see it better. So one would expect the Arabic numerals to be printed in white paint on the black date wheel, but they're actually printed in C3 Superluminova, so they glow in the dark and they work very well, as shown in the lume test, which we'll do. Proportions of the black handset are correct. They contrast very well with a matte finish to the C3 Superluminova fully loomed dial. Quality of the black minute ticks on the chapter ring are crisp and high definition. They're not too thick and blurry. The H.G.P logo at 12 o'clock is nice and sharp. The font is fine. It's not too thick. And also the printing of the text is good quality. 200 meters. I like the use of automatique in French rather than the English spelling. And at 6 o'clock, below the 6 o'clock index, we have France, because H.G.P watches are made in France. So proportions of the dial are good, quality of the black printing of the indices, the minute ticks on the chapter ring are also very good. I like the finishing to the dial, and I like that the matte indices contrast very well with the C3 Superluminova. Handset is good. The length of the second hand extends all the way to the minute ticks. The tip of the pencil minute hand also extends to the minute ticks, so they've got the proportions of the handset right. Now, one thing I like about it is the rehort is not too thick. Often with NH35A powered pieces, low tier brands have a tendency to make the rehort too thick, too deep, so the dial is sunk too deep inside the head of the piece. But this dial, the edge of it where the chapter ring is, has a bevel to it. It's not flat, so the chapter ring also has a 3D effect, and that means they've reduced the depth or the thickness of the rehort. They've made it slender because the dial actually has a 3D effect. The edge of the dial isn't flat, it's got a concave profile to it, so the chapter ring does actually make the dial slightly thicker at the circumference, and they've been able to reduce the rehort as a result. The other benefit is they've sandblasted the rehorts. Often rehorts are mirror polished or alternatively brushed satin finish, which makes them very shiny and reflective, rather like a 360-degree mirror. So the problem with that is when light enters the sapphire crystal, it then gets bounced around and reflected 360 degrees around the rehort because it's like a shiny silver mirror. But they've sandblasted the rehorts rather than mirror polishing it or brushed satin finishing it, and therefore that refracts the light rather than reflecting it as per a mirror. So the legibility of this piece is very good due to the low profile rehort and the matte finish of the rehort. It doesn't reflect the light, it refracts it. The dial is also close to the underside of the sapphire crystal. The other benefit is the date window and the date complication itself, the date wheel, is close to the underside of the sapphire crystal. So the dial and the handset look close to the sapphire crystal. They don't look deep and far away, which is often the case with NH35A powered pieces. So bezel is solid 316L grade stainless steel, gear tooth profile to it. There is a notable difference between this automatic and the quartz version I previously reviewed. The quartz version I reviewed, which was on the beads of rice bracelet, had a brushed satin finished case and also had a brushed satin finished gear tooth bezel. This bezel is gear tooth, but it is sandblasted finish to match the sandblasted case. Very aesthetically pleasing. It does give it a tool watch aesthetic or military issued aesthetic, and even the bevels on the edge of the case, which mark the transition between the tops of the lugs and the flanks, are also sandblasted. So every facet of this watch, even in between the lugs, is fully sandblasted to the same finish. Gear tooth profile to the bezel is very grippy and tactile. There's a nice large chamfer to the top edge, and that deburrs and chamfers the tips of the gear tooth teeth. So they are grippy and tactile, but they don't dig into the index finger and thumb. So it does feel like a grippy bezel without being sharp. The aluminium bezel insert has a nice metallic sheen to it, and it does complement the sandblasted case and the sandblasted bezel. Now, one could be critical of this and say they should have used ceramic, because ceramic would have been harder and more scratch resistant. But however, this aluminium bezel insert does give it a vintage aesthetic. It does look very similar to H.G.P dive pieces, which they produced in the 1970s and 1980s using the same iconic Monin 844 case. I like the aluminium bezel insert because of the matte satin sheen to it. It's got that metallic finish. One doesn't get that with ceramic, and also the silver finish of it complements the sandblasted finish to the case. So I think it looks good, although it's not as scratch resistant as ceramic. They've done a very good job of the printing of the black minute ticks in the first 20 minutes, and also the Arabic numerals are correctly proportioned. The font is nice and crisp. The quality of the printing is sharp. They've also outlined the triangle, which is fully loomed for as an alternative to a loom pip at 12 o'clock. So the proportion of the triangle, which is fully loomed, is correct, and the legibility is very good. So it's aesthetically pleasing. Let's test the bezel execution. 120 click unidirectional bezel, as one would expect. Nice loud audible clicks. I like the sound and I like the feeling. One can really feel the click spring beneath the bezel engaging with 120 clicks. The grooves in the underside to the stainless steel bezel feels robust, feels solid and reliable. No lateral side-to-side play whatsoever, no back play whatsoever. Nice loud audible clicks. It feels even all the way through the 360 degrees of rotation. It doesn't get tighter or looser. Medium resistance, it's not too heavy or too light. In terms of how it feels very similar to a Seiko 5KX, which you may be familiar with. It's got that medium firm resistance. They've got the balance just right. It doesn't feel too light or too heavy. Medium firm resistance, very similar to a Seiko 5KX. So, no lateral side-to-side play, no back play. Let's just check the alignments. One more click. Perfect. The triangle, which is fully loomed with C3, perfectly aligns with a 60-minute tick on the chapter ring and the 12 o'clock index on the dial. This is an example to other low-tier brands of how to get it correct. H.G.P deserve credit for perfect bezel execution. No lateral side-to-side play, no back play, even all the way through the 360 degrees of rotation. Perfect alignment. Bang on 12 o'clock, bang on 60 on the chapter ring. Outstanding. They could not improve upon it. Feels good, sounds good, execution is perfect. So let's look at the crown. Solid 316L grade stainless steel crown, coin edge finished. Nice chamfer to it, which deburrs the teeth, so it does feel grippy and tactile, and I like the V cutout, which is iconic. It is part of the 844 Monin's iconic case. It does a good job of protecting the crown. It's fully recessed. It's got a domed cap to it, which is sandblasted. Normally I would be critical of crowns being sterile at this price point, €469, but I'm not going to be critical in this case because it's an aspect, it's a design element of the original 1970s and 1980s 844 Monin cases. The crowns were sterile. And I think it is acceptable because effectively this is like a heritage reissue of the original 1970s and 1980s, which used the same Monin 844 cases. They did not have signed crowns. They could further enhance it with an embossed or engraved H.G.P to bring it up to contemporary standards, but this is subjective. Some collectors prefer crowns to be original, as per military issued pieces or tool watches which were sterile in the 1970s and 1980s. I think it would look better with H.G.P embossed or engraved, but I'm not going to be critical because the original 1970s and 1980s versions did not have signed crowns either. So let's test the execution. Silky smooth. Perfect interface between the internal thread of the stainless steel crown and the external thread of the stainless steel crown tube. There's very good machining, tolerances and quality control here. Minimal number of turns required. So when it's fully unscrewed, we're now in the manual wind position, and one can manually wind the caliber NH35A to its maximum 41-hour power reserve. Feels nice and smooth, doesn't feel gritty or rough to manually wind. One can feel the tension in the mainspring gradually building up to its maximum 41 hours. Feels very good. Good meshing in the gearing, and I like the feeling of the tension gradually building up. So it's an absolute pleasure to manually wind the caliber NH35A. Pulling it out to the first click position is the quick set date complication. So if you look at the date, you can see it's now clicking over with a nice solid indexing. It's a characteristic I really like about the NH35A. The quick set complication for the dates has nice, heavy, solid indexing. Feels good and robust and reliable. Both the single and the double Arabic numerals are correctly aligned. The proportion of the font is good, it's fine, it's crisp, it's not too thick and too blurry. Legibility is good. Now, one detail I like about it is it's not printed with white paint. One would expect this to have white Arabic numerals printed with white paint on a black date wheel, but they're actually fully loomed, the Arabic numerals, with C3 Superluminova, and one doesn't often see that on low-tier pieces at this price point of €469 to see fully loomed Arabic numerals on the date. So both the singles and the doubles are clearly legible, and the alignment is correct, not too far to the left or right of the date window and not too high or too low. Nice positive clicks, both the singles and the doubles click over, good solid indexing, so it feels very good to set the date. Pulling it out to the second click position is the time setting position. It hacks the movement, and if you look at the second hand you can see it's now stopped dead, so it's possible to set the time precisely to the second with the NH35A. We're now in the time setting position. Feels smooth, both clockwise and anti-clockwise, all the way through the 12 hours. Medium resistance, one can feel the gearing meshes very well. There is some slight backplay, which is a characteristic of the NH35A. When you rotate the crown clockwise and anti-clockwise, there isn't an immediate response. You have to take up some very slight slack. But however, that's something you just have to live with. Once you become accustomed to taking up the slack in the gearing, it does feel very good to set the time. Pushing it back in, it's got a nice positive click, and that restarts the movement. You can see the black second hand with black pip begins to sweep around the dial at the characteristic 3 Hz sweep. Now, the negative of this being 3 Hz is the second hand stutters or judders, but again, that's something you just have to live with because the NH35A runs at 21,600 vibrations per hour. I prefer movements that have a 4 Hz sweep because the second hand sweep's smoother, running at 28,800 vibrations per hour, rather than the stutter or judder one gets with a 3 Hz sweep. But however, this is subjective. For the majority of collectors, they don't mind the 3 Hz sweep, stutter and judder of the second hand. So let's test screwing the crown back down. Instant thread pickup. There's a perfect interface or pickup between the internal thread of the stainless steel crown and the external thread of the stainless steel crown tube. This is sublime screw down crown execution. To put this into perspective, this is every bit as good as a Rolex, Tudor or Omega screw down crown used on the Black Bay 58, Seamaster or Rolex Submariner Date, for example. This feels as smooth as the Rolex Triplock crown used on my Submariner Date 16610, for example. There's no discernible difference. The threading feels silky smooth. Good quality control, machining, tolerances, they could not improve upon it. It is outstanding. To see this, it's an example to other low-tier brands at this price point of €469 of how to get screw-down crown execution perfected. So, as I've detailed, this vintage tropic style strap, which also looks like a rally strap due to the large holes, is made from NBR rubber, which is nitrile butadiene rubber, and nitrile butadiene is often used in the automotive and aeronautical industries because it is chemical, oil and UV resistant, so higher quality than silicone rubber, similar quality to natural rubber, alternatively FKM fluoro rubber. Does feel stiffer than silicone, but it's more robust and durable. So, 2 keepers, as I've detailed, and they also include a single larger keeper if you prefer. Let's look at the case back. Solid 316L grade stainless steel case back. This provides an effective hermetic seal to 200 meters, and as you can see, it's engraved with 844 because this uses the iconic 844 Monin case. And if you look at the lower right lug, you can see it's also engraved with GM for Georges Monin. Georges Monin was the designer of the Monin case in the 1970s, so iconic. Good to see a genuine Georges Monin case made in France used in this piece rather than a copy. So, the centre section of the case is longitudinally brushed satin finish to a good standard. The circumference is mirror polished to a good standard. The milled slots are deburred and chamfered very well. Engraving is high definition, but it's been polished very well, so no sharp edges to the high definition engraving of the specification. Now, it is a bubble back case back, that's something to note. I previously reviewed the quartz version of the Diver 200M, which was thinner. It used the same crystal, the same 844 case, and also the same bezel. The thickness was thinner due to the thinner case back because it was quartz powered by the Seiko VH31, therefore it didn't have a rotor and didn't need additional clearance. So the case back on the quartz version is noticeably thinner. This is 13.4, which is down to the bubble back case back. That's something to bear in mind if you prefer thinner pieces. I recommend the quartz version of the Diver 200M versus this automatic version. The Night Diver 200M you're looking at is only available in automatic. They do not currently make a quartz version. So 13.4 due to the bubble back case back. Does feel nice and smooth, so it's comfortable to wear for long periods of time, such as 8 to 12 hours per day. They could further enhance the strap by using quick release spring bars rather than conventional standard spring bars. That would negate the need for a spring bar tool. With regards to the finishing to the underside to the head of the 844 case, you can see it's fully sandblasted to a good quality finish. They've deburred and chamfered the 4 tips to the lugs so they don't have sharp corners or edges to the tips of the 4 corners. The undercuts to the flanks of the case don't have any sharp edges, so it's deburred and chamfered to perfection. The finishing of the 844 Monin case is outstanding. So I'll give you a wrist shot and you can see how it fits on my 8-inch wrist. Just bear with me and I'll get the buckle and tang to engage, which is difficult wearing gloves. Right, so this is a tight fit on my 8-inch wrist, but I can just engage the end of the vintage tropic strap with the end of the strap, as you can see. Now, I could just engage the end of it in the 2 sliding keepers, but it's a fraction too short. It would need to be half an inch longer for comfort. This is a tight fit. I can just slide an index finger beneath it. I'm going to be critical of this. Yes, this tropic style strap would fit the majority of collectors with a 6 to 7.5 inch wrist, but this is meant to be a dive piece used as a tool watch. So for example, you're supposed to be able to wear this around a wetsuit for sea diving, and the problem with this is you're not going to be able to fit this around a wetsuit if you have a larger 8-inch wrist. So they really need to extend this strap by 1 inch or at least half an inch for a larger 8-inch plus wrist. Alternatively, if you simply have a 7.5-inch wrist and you want to wear this around a wetsuit in the sea. So the proportions look good. It's 20mm tapering down to 16. It does have the vintage aesthetic of a 1960s or 1970s tropic strap. This does wear with wrist presence. 42mm is a large head of the piece, but I enjoy the wrist presence of the iconic 844 Monin case. Nice curved undercut to the flanks, but as you can see, this does have a gap beneath the tips of the curved lugs and also the edge of the case, the flanks, because it does have a bubble back case back in order to provide adequate clearance around the rotor of the NH35A. The quartz version does sit lower to the wrist and it is 13mm versus this 13.4. 13mm is the sweet spot for a piece to easily slip underneath the shirt cuff if you wear business shirts. So at 13.4 it's a fraction above the sweet spot It's slightly more difficult to slip underneath a shirt cuff. It's 0.4mm too thick. The proportion of the head of the piece, the bezel and the sapphire crystal are the same as the quartz version. The only difference is the case back is thicker due to the bubble back profile. The quartz version has a flatter case back. That's something to bear in mind. Wrist presence is good at 42, but it does lack heft. This is surprisingly light for 42mm automatic. It's only 95 grams on the rubber strap. I would expect this to be over 100 grams, bearing in mind it's 42mm. Visually, it looks and wears more like a 40, even though it's a 42. Due to the taper on the lugs and also the curved profile to the lugs, it's deceptive. It visually looks like a 40 on wrist, but it does have the wrist presence of a 42 due to the aggressive, large, deep bezel with the big teeth. You can see the gear tooth teeth. It's quite a tall bezel, and that does add some thickness to the head of the piece. So it does look aggressive, like a tool watch or a military issued piece at 13.4. So it does wear with wrist presence. I would say if you're a collector with a 6 to 7 inch wrist, you may find it dominates the wrist too much and wears with too much wrist presence. But if you have a larger 7 to 8 inch wrist, you'll really enjoy the wrist presence and the iconic 844 Monin case. It's just beautiful to look at from every angle. The sapphire crystal works very well. The contrast of the black handset and the black printed indices against the C3 superluminova dial works very well. Legibility is good, symmetry of the dial is good. I like that the rehort is shallow, it's not too deep, so the dial is close to the sapphire crystal. Doesn't have a very deep rehort, as per many NH35A powered pieces. Also, the sandblasted rehort refracts the light rather than reflecting it like a mirror. So legibility is good, feel good factor is good. I like the way the flat sapphire crystal has a large bevel on the edge because that catches the light. When you tilt the piece at an oblique angle, you can see the edge of the sapphire crystal, which projects above the aluminium bezel insert, catches the light, so it gives it a real vintage aesthetic. Just a gorgeous looking piece from every angle. Feel good factor is outstanding. Comfort level is outstanding. 95 grams really feels weightless for a 42mm. That's the kind of heft one would expect with a manual wind or quartz powered piece on a rubber strap. 42mm to get 95 grams of heft is very lightweight. So good looking piece. Feel good factor is good. Comfort level is good, but clearly best suited to a larger wrist of 7 to 8 inches. If you have a 6 to 7 inch wrist, you may find it too large. Now, one thing I dislike about it is if you look at the buckle and tang, the tang of the buckle has this angular profile. It's not straight. Now, I appreciate this is a faithful reissue of the original Tropic style straps. They also had a very similar angular profile to the tang. The problem with the angle of it, like a right angle, is it makes it more difficult to engage in the holes because it is very thick. The strap, because of the textured finish to it, which is 3D, rather than being thin and flat, it's actually difficult to get the end of it through the perforations, the holes. Had they made it a straight tang in the buckle rather than an angular one, it would make it easier to engage. But of course it does wrap around the buckle very well when you do engage it. Just makes it more tricky to engage, so there is room for refinement. Right, so let's do a lume test and we'll see how the lume performs when it's charged up to the absolute maximum. So as always, I'm going to use my 100 UV LED torch to charge it up to the absolute peak. Right, so that's now fully charged, and as you can see, it has not disappointed. This is stellar performance. We're clearly looking at 5 to 6 layers on the handset. The hands are black and outlined in black, as you can see, so the legibility is fantastic. The printed black indices also contrast very well with the fully lumed C3 superluminova dial. Now, in daylight conditions, there's a perfect green tone match between the handset, the lume pip on the aluminium bezel insert, and also the fully lumed dial. In the dark, you can see the exciter of the handset is glowing even brighter than the fully lumed dial. That indicates 7 layers. When I previously reviewed the Diver 200M quartz version, that used an incredible 7 layers on the dial and 7 layers on the handset. So I think that this piece clearly uses 7 layers on the handset as well. The reason why I think it's 7 rather than 5 to 6 is if you look at how brightly the white tone of the green C3 is glowing, the exciter is glowing even brighter on the handset than the dial. That tells me that this has 7 layers on the handset as per the quartz version I reviewed. 5 to 6 is the industry standard for good reason. It's the optimum level for performance. H.G.P go one better. They use 7 layers on the handset, and it's just incredible. Look how brightly the hands are glowing. They're not going to fade whatsoever exponentially with time. This is stellar performance. The dial is fully lumed with C3, as you can see. Nice green tone to it, and it's even all the way around the dial. The inlaid triangle in the aluminium bezel insert as an alternative to a Lume pip is also clearly lumed with 5 to 6 layers. It's not fading whatsoever. The exciter is glowing very brightly. So legibility is good. The black indices are correctly proportioned. The black minute ticks are correctly proportioned. Nice high definition crisp printing. And I think the dial layout is very easy to read. And also the black outline of the hands. One can clearly tell which is the hour hand, which is the minute hand. Also the black pip on the sweeping second hand is clearly legible. It contrasts very well with the dial. Now, as I've detailed, one thing I like about it is I thought originally the black date wheel was printed with white Arabic numerals for the dates, but they've actually fully loomed the Arabic numerals on the date wheel as well, so you can even see the date in the dark as well. Both the singles and the doubles are clearly legible, so they've printed the Arabic numerals on the date in C3, Superlume Nova, rather than just using white's paint. No cost-cutting measures whatsoever. As you can see, the exciter in the Lume pip or the triangle on the bezel, the fully loomed dial and also the handset have stellar performance. The exciter is continuing to glow. It's not fading whatsoever. This is 10 out of 10 performance. They really could not improve upon it. Fantastic fully loomed dial, one of the best I've seen. Right, so let's discuss the movement used. You'll all be familiar with the Seiko NH35A Automatic, which is made in both Japan and Malaysia. H.G.P are using the Japanese-made versions. There's no discernible difference in terms of quality. Both the Malaysian NH35As and the Japanese NH35As are made to the same quality control, build quality and material standards. It has 24 joules. It runs at 21,600 vibrations per hour and a frequency of 3 Hz. It has hand winding and hacking, which is used for complications, and also a quick set date complication, which, as I've demonstrated, works very well. 41-hour power reserve is perfectly acceptable. The stated accuracy of the NH35A is -20 to +40 seconds per day, so rather wide accuracy range. However, I'm pleased to report that H.G.P are doing a good job of regulating the NH35As they're using. This one is running consistently at +3 seconds per day. +3 is well within the stated -20 to +40 per day, and it is actually within chronometer accuracy of -4 to +6. They're clearly regulating their movements in 5 positions to attain chronometer accuracy from an NH35A. +3 really is the very best of regulation. Anything between ± or -5 is excellent accuracy. So, reliable, well-proven workhorse movement made in Japan. No negatives to it whatsoever, other than the stutter or judder of the second hand because it sweeps at 3 Hz versus 4 Hz, but as I've detailed, this is subjective. Really, there are no other negatives to the NH35A. I like the reliability of it. The build quality, quality control, reliability materials are all very good. It is a reliable, well-proven workhorse movement. However, I'm going to be critical of H.G.P using it at this price point because this is a low-tier piece at €469. I would like to see a higher grade of movement, such as a Miyota caliber 9015. That is a premium grade of Miyota caliber, the 9000 series. The 9015 would be appropriate at this price point, or alternatively, the Sellita SW200-1, which is a higher grade of movement. The NH35A is acceptable below €300 in the low tier, but when one gets to €469, with a rubber strap piece rather than a bracelet piece like this, one expects a higher grade of movement. It has to be either the Miyota 9015 or the Sellita SW200-1. They are the industry standards at this price point of $469 because it is getting close to where the low tier finishes and the mid tier starts. So to clarify, low tier is €0 to €500 price point. Mid tier is €500 to €5,000. So at the top of the low tier, we've got the NH35A, and then from €500 onwards, it becomes the mid tier, and one expects the movements to change to 9015 or SW200-1 at that price point. So they're really pushing it with regards to specification to use an NH35A at €469. This is a rubber strap piece. It's not coming on the beads of rice bracelet on the quartz version. And bear in mind, the quartz version I reviewed, that has the beads of rice bracelet, but it's only €300. This is $469, but it's on the rubber strap, not the beads of rice bracelet. So lastly, I'll summarise the piece. What do I think of it overall? Well, when I'm considering reviewing a watch on my channel, the watch has to meet 2 criteria. It needs to be both excellent quality and excellent value at the respective price point. So low tier piece, price point is €469. I'm going to declare the quality as excellent, but the value as okay. I'm not going to say the value is good or excellent because In order for it to be upgraded to good or excellent, it would need to come on the beads of rice bracelet rather than 2 rubber straps, which they've included. If this were on the beads of rice bracelet, I would say yes, it's good quality as per the quartz version I reviewed. That is definitely excellent quality and excellent value at €300. But on the rubber strap, it's not. €469. The other thing is the movement needs upgrading. In order for this to be good or excellent quality and value, it needs to have the Miyota 9015 or it needs to have the Sellita SW200-1. The NH35A is a good movement, but it's not good enough for €469 in terms of quality and value. It's good below €300, but not at 469. So I'm going to recommend it to you for consideration. I hope you've enjoyed my review of the H.G.P Night Diver 200M Automatic. Please feel free to post your own comments below the video. Thank you for watching.